Isaiah used Stella's life to take down Curtis. Revenge reached its peak, General Hospital spoilers. Port Charles had weathered its share of earthquakes, mob wars, custody battles, miracle returns from the dead, and heartbreaks disguised as hope. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared the town for the storm now forming in the shadows. It was silent, patient, meticulous, and fueled by a man driven by the kind of hatred that never cooled with time. Isaiah Reddick had been watching Port Charles for months. To the outside world, he was no more than a newcomer renting a small apartment near Rice Plaza. Quiet. Respectful. A man who always held the door open for others and tipped generously when he picked up coffee at Perks. But under that pleasant smile was a storm that had been brewing for nearly 2 decades. And at the center of that storm? Curtis Ashford. Curtis, the man Isaiah blamed for tearing his life apart, the man whose choices years ago set in motion a devastating tragedy Isaiah never recovered from. Curtis had moved on, built a family, owned a nightclub, stood tall as a respected man in Port Charles. But Isaiah remembered every single detail. And now, he was ready. Ready to end Curtis Ashford. The only thing Isaiah needed was one weapon powerful enough to cut Curtis where it hurt the most: Stella Henry. Stella Henry bustled through General Hospital's volunteer wing with a warmth that brightened even the gloomiest of winter mornings. Her spirit was contagious. Her laughter, recognizable from 3 floors down. And her fierce love for Curtis? Unshakable. She was the heart of their fractured little family, the voice of reason when conflict erupted, and the one person whose approval Curtis always sought, whether he admitted it or not. But today, Stella felt watched. While organizing files, she paused. Her hand froze mid-air. A chill raced down her spine. The hairs on her arms stood straight. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes narrowing. Someone was there. Someone was watching. But by the time she turned fully, the hallway was empty. "Girl, get a grip," she muttered to herself and went back to sorting patient records. But the feeling didn't leave. Because the eyes were still there. Isaiah stepped deeper into the shadows and smiled. Perfect. Curtis was finally walking again after his long recovery, and every step was a reminder of the miracle that had saved him. Today was supposed to be a good day. A stable day. A hopeful day. He had woken early, determined to open the Savoy himself and give the staff a break. He'd made coffee, reviewed upcoming events, and even scheduled a meeting about revitalizing the club's lounge area. Life, after so many heartbreaks, was finally starting to look stable again. But good days never lasted long in Port Charles. Curtis's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He frowned. Hello? Curtis Ashford speaking. Silence. Then a whisper. She's running out of time. Curtis straightened instantly. Who is this? Someone who remembers what you did. What the hell are you talking about? You should have thought twice before destroying a family, Curtis. I don't know who you think I. You will. Very soon. Click. Curtis stared at the phone as dread curled in his stomach. Something was coming. And it was big. Years earlier, Curtis had been a DEA agent working a case that crossed state lines. He'd been investigating a drug ring that operated out of Baltimore, cleaning up the streets, focusing on getting justice for families torn apart by addiction. Back then, Curtis Ashford was known for being aggressive, direct, and relentless. His determination got results. But it also got people hurt. Isaiah's brother, Malik Reddick, was a confidential informant. Young. Scared. Trying to escape the criminal world he'd been dragged into since he was a teenager. Curtis had been his handler. Then the bust went wrong. Very wrong. Someone tipped off the drug ring. A shootout erupted. Malik died before Curtis even got there. And Isaiah never accepted the official report. He believed Curtis had made a reckless call, pushing Malik into a meeting he wasn't ready for, refusing to give him backup. The case was closed. Curtis moved on. Isaiah did not. When he discovered Curtis lived in Port Charles, everything inside him sharpened into one mission. Destroy Curtis Ashford. And what better way to do that than through the one person Curtis loved like a mother? Stella Henry. It happened silently. Stella had been leaving General Hospital late in the afternoon. The elevator opened. She stepped in. She pushed the button for the lobby. But before the doors closed, a hand stopped them. Isaiah. He smiled warmly. Miss Henry? You dropped this in the hallway. He held out a folded piece of paper. Stella frowned. I don't think that's but the doors slid shut. And Stella never made it out of General Hospital. Curtis was at the Savoy when his phone vibrated violently. One new message, a video. He tapped it. Stella was tied to a chair. Her eyes were terrified but defiant. Curtis, baby, don't you give this man what he wants. Then Isaiah stepped into the frame. Hello, Curtis. Curtis nearly dropped the phone. I told you you'd understand soon. And now you do. Jordan was the first person Curtis called. Stella's been taken, he said, unable to keep the tremor out of his voice. I need your help. Jordan, his ex-wife and still one of the people who knew him best, didn't hesitate. Send me the video. Now. I'll get a team together. Portia arrived moments later, breathless, panicked, furious, her hands shaking as she reached for Curtis. What happened? What's going on with Stella? Curtis swallowed hard. She's been kidnapped. No, Portia whispered, covering her mouth. Who would? Isaiah's voice echoed again in Curtis's mind. Someone who remembers what you did. Curtis knew exactly who. And he knew why. Stella's captivity wasn't violent, but it was psychological torture. Isaiah sat across from her, calm as still water. Why are you doing this? Stella demanded. Curtis ain't done nothing to you. Isaiah laughed. A soft, chilling laugh. Oh, Miss Henry. Curtis destroyed my family. Stella's heart sank. What are you talking about? Your beloved Curtis caused the death of my brother. And now? I'm going to make him feel that same pain. You're wrong, Stella shot back. You're blinded by your grief. Isaiah's eyes hardened. No. I'm focused by it. Isaiah sent Curtis coordinates. A warehouse. On the waterfront. Of course. Jordan insisted on bringing the police. Portia begged Curtis not to go. Marshall prayed aloud, trembling in a corner of the Savoy. But Curtis shook his head. This is my fight. He went alone. Inside the warehouse, the air was damp and thick with tension. A single spotlight flicked on. Stella was tied to a chair. Curtis ran forward. Stop. Isaiah stepped out of the darkness holding a gun. You move again, she dies. Curtis froze. Let her go, Curtis said, voice raw. Isaiah shook his head slowly. Not until you feel what I felt. Then he lifted the gun. At Curtis. What do you want from me? Curtis shouted. I want your confession, Isaiah snarled. I want Stella to hear how your choices killed my brother. Curtis's eyes flickered to Stella. To Isaiah. Back to Stella. Isaiah, listen to me. I didn't kill Malik. You pushed him into that meeting. He insisted. He wanted out. He wanted his life back. Curtis yelled. I begged him to let us wait. He refused. Isaiah faltered. He said you pressured him. I tried to stop him, Curtis said through clenched teeth. But he said it was his last chance to prove himself. Isaiah's breathing quickened. That can't be true. Curtis softened his voice. I cared about your brother. I didn't want him to die. And Stella. He swallowed. Stella didn't deserve this. Isaiah's hand shook. For a second, just a second, the gun lowered. Stella took her chance. Isaiah, baby, listen. Your brother wouldn't want this. You're better than this. Don't let your grief destroy you the way you think Curtis destroyed Malik. Isaiah's face twisted into anguish. And then, a SWAT team burst through the doors. Jordan's voice boomed. Drop the weapon. Isaiah spun, eyes wide. No. A shot fired. Chaos erupted. Curtis lunged at Isaiah, knocking him to the ground. The gun skittered away. Officers swarmed in. Isaiah screamed, fought, struggled, but they pinned him. Curtis untied Stella, pulling her into his arms. She held him tight, her hands trembling as badly as his. Jordan approached them quietly. Is everyone okay? Stella nodded shakily. Curtis didn't answer. His eyes were locked on Isaiah, now handcuffed and bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Isaiah glared back. This isn't over, he hissed. You took everything from me. Curtis stepped forward. No. Your grief did. Not me. But Isaiah wasn't listening. He was still drowning in the past. The story spread like wildfire. A kidnapping. A revenge plot. A nearly fatal confrontation. Trina visited Stella with flowers, hugging her tightly. Marshall hovered protectively. Portia refused to let Curtis out of her sight. Everyone had an opinion. Some felt for Isaiah, understanding how grief twisted a man. Others believed he deserved every punishment coming his way. But Curtis? He was quiet. Too quiet. Portia asked him gently, "Curtis, what are you thinking?" Curtis stared into the distance. "I'm thinking that maybe I've spent too much of my life running from my past. And it finally caught up." Portia touched his arm. "You survived it." "I'm not sure Isaiah will," Curtis whispered. 2 days later, Jordan received a call. Isaiah wanted to speak to Curtis. "Just him," Isaiah insisted. "No police, no lawyers." Curtis agreed. He found Isaiah sitting behind glass, his eyes no longer burning with rage, just exhaustion. "You wanted to see me?" Isaiah nodded. "I needed to know if everything you said about Malik was true." Curtis sat down. "It was." Isaiah exhaled shakily. "I spent years blaming you, hating you, planning to destroy you. And now? I don't even know who I am without that hatred." Curtis leaned forward. "You can choose who you become now." Isaiah looked up. "Can you forgive me?" Curtis was quiet for a long moment. Finally, "Yes." Isaiah broke. Tears. Real, raw tears. Years of grief pouring out at once. And Curtis walked away knowing that, for once, revenge had not claimed another life. Stella recovered quickly, though Curtis noticed she sometimes jumped at sudden noises. She insisted she was fine, but Curtis knew better. At the Savoy, he gathered his family. "This ends today," Curtis said. "Isaiah's behind bars. The past is finally behind us too." But Stella shook her head. "No, baby. The past ain't behind us. It's part of us. But it ain't gotta define us." Curtis smiled. His family was safe. His future was intact. And though his past had resurfaced with terrifying force, he had survived it. Isaiah had tried to destroy Curtis by taking Stella, the center of their world, and using her life as leverage. But in the end, Isaiah didn't break Curtis. He forced him to confront his past and grow from it. Port Charles buzzed with gossip, but those closest to Curtis knew the truth. The storm had passed. Curtis had not only saved Stella, he had saved Isaiah too. And in a town like Port Charles, where darkness and redemption lived side by side, that was its own kind of miracle.